Welcome to our conversation about the relationship between equity and competency-based education with Shantel Goodman-Luckett. My name is Julie Mountcastle, and I'm head of school at Slate School. Slate School is an independent 501c3 nonprofit K-12 school where education is focused on cultivating creativity, fostering ingenuity, and inspiring a deep passion for lifelong learning. At Slate School, we formed a community that is constantly striving to improve practice, to create meaningful educational experiences for educators and people of all ages, and of course, to change the landscape in education. We are delighted to present the Education Idea Lab, which is a unique series that is free and always open to the public. Our Idea Labs convene leaders, change makers, and participants from all sectors of education innovation. So thank you so much for joining us. We're so delighted to have all of you with us today. Once we get started, I do hope that you'll include some questions in the chat if you have some. I've collected questions from people here at Slate School and from our community, but we would be thrilled to hear what you're wondering too. So I am thrilled to introduce you to Shantel Goodman-Luckett. She's the Chief Experience Officer for the National Association of College Admissions Counselors, which is an organization of more than 26,000 professionals from around the world and is dedicated to serving students as they make choices about pursuing post-secondary education. The professional membership of NACAC is committed to advocacy, ethics, and best practices in the field of college admissions counseling. Shantel's position as CXO brings creativity, innovation, and collaboration to all aspects of the NACAC member experience. And she's responsible for developing and implementing strategies to ensure successful outcomes for service, outreach, and impact among college admission professionals while ensuring a seamless approach that embodies excellence and operationalizes the organization's values. But that's not all. She's also served as an adjunct faculty member at Marymount University in Virginia. She earned her BS in Mass Communications and Advertising from Virginia Commonwealth University and her MBA with a concentration in marketing from Johns Hopkins University. So this person knows from what she speaks. And we are so fortunate to have you here with us. So welcome, Shantel.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, Julie. I appreciate it.
Well, it's really wonderful. And I have to say, and I'll share with the audience, the first time I heard you speak was at the Mastery Transcript Consortium Symposium in Boston. And I think I squealed like a 14-year-old girl. I was so excited to hear your talk. And I was so inspired that I think I hunted you down in the lobby. It was like a stalker. And I think I said like 3 words. Abida, would you speak in an Idea Lab, please?
Oh my gosh.
And you were so kind to say yes. And so I'm so grateful.
Well,
but I'm wondering
to approach me. I appreciate that.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm sure I was one of many because you had a very, very enthusiastic response for your talk. And it was an inspiring experience, that whole event. But I think your talk was really important. And I'm just so I'm wondering if before we start, let's level the playing field a little bit for the people who haven't heard the talk that I heard. And if you could just share a little bit about your journey to NACAC with our audience, I think that would be really, really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my career right out of college. I graduated from Virginia Commonwealth University, go Rams. And I got a job at the Washington Post. So I worked there for a number of years. I grew up on a farm, and so outside of Richmond. And so it was very different, right? The transition from even growing up in a rural area and then going to VCU in Richmond, Virginia, located in the heart of downtown. And I will say, like, that was probably my first time exposed to diversity, right? Like a diverse population, I should say, because where I grew up, you were either Black or you were white. And I honestly didn't realize how segregated we were until I became an adult. save that for another conversation. But so I went to VCU, graduated, and then moved up here to the DC area. Worked at the Washington Post in sales and marketing. Started on the print side at the Washington Post, and then this whole internet thing came about. And so I transitioned over to the digital side and worked with on WashingtonPost.com and Slate.com and so forth. I went from there to I worked for Marriott International, where I did digital marketing for the Courtyard brand
Oh,
for several years, which was amazing. And then from there, I'm always looking for growth. And from there, I started working at the Global Business Travel Association. So that was my first foray into nonprofit world, which was great. And I was there for nearly 10 years. When I left there, I was the senior vice president of global marketing for them. It was interesting because I started working at NACAC in 2021. And so we were still obviously in the midst of the pandemic and all of that. And I just happened to be casually, I'm always, what's out there, what jobs are out there. And when I saw this position, and someone had told me about it also, they were like, your experience, you should take a look at this job. And I read the job description, and honestly, what drew me to the role was on the cover of because this job description was not a one-page job description. Our CEO, Angel Perez, crafted the job description. It was pages, which was great. But on the cover, there was a quote by the late Maya Angelou. And it said, I've learned that people will forget what you said, and they will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And I was sold. I'm like, I need to apply for this job because I would love to do this job. And it incorporated everything that I had done before, right? Collaborating just across the organization with education and training and membership and the C-suite and so forth. So I put my hat in the ring and I ended up here at NACAC, and I will be celebrating my third year here in February of 2024. So,
wow. Well,
yeah.
awesome. It's a great story, even
Yeah.
the second time. And I'm glad everybody got to hear it.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what's your day look like at NACAC?
So I oversee specifically membership, which includes global engagement, as well as events and meetings. So like our annual conference, our college fairs, any event logistics for other events that we may do, like Guiding the Way to Inclusion, et cetera, as well as sales and marketing. So my goodness, a typical day.
You're wearing a lot of hats.
Wearing a lot of hats, but I'm spending a lot of time talking to people throughout the organization and also our members. So our membership consists of post-secondary institutions and individuals, secondary institutions and individuals, as well as independent education consultants and community-based organizations. So we get a lot of member feedback and input, which is great. I do spend a lot of time talking to members, getting that feedback, but a large part of my goal is because college admissions, it's not an easy place to, profession or field to work in right now. It's so much going on, as you know, and my job is to listen and also figure out ways to help inspire our members, to help provide them with access to information and resources that they need to do their jobs and support students, and empower them. I think the biggest thing is what I get the most joy out of is is seeing our members by listening, by sharing. So listening, but also sharing information with them, pointing them in the right direction. They may be having a challenge. And sometimes I'm not pointing them to a NACAC resource. I might be just connecting members, which I think is great. And that, I don't know, all of that just brings me a lot of joy. So my day is, I'm sitting with education and training one day, in the morning. I might be sitting with the membership experience team in the afternoon. We're always, the events that we do, the annual conference, I mean, we're already, we're heading to LA. The conference is in LA in September next year. So we have our first or second site visit to LA coming in February. So that's happening.
That's good planning, I have to tell you.
Yes. We don't have a choice. We really don't have a choice. Our college fair season kicks off in February. And so we are always looking to, especially now, I think 2018, 2019, I think we were averaging about 60, 65 fairs a year throughout North America. This past year, we were at 40, 41, 2023. So we're building back up.
Mhm.
The demand is there, and I get it. I mean, if it were up to us, like we would have like 500 fairs a year if we could do that. Because it's just, for me, being able to go to a college fair and witnessing that connection between the students and the colleges and universities. I mean, there's students, I mean, just, I sit back and I observe people. I love observing people and seeing the student show up with a jacket and a bow tie and his, and his folder because he's ready to talk to a school. But also seeing that student who is apprehensive because they're not sure and they're nervous and they're, that's college admission, right?
Yeah. One of the
Um,
most important days of your life, right? When you decide,
oh,
what you're going to do next, like and it can be so intimidating for some kids, and other kids are just so excited for the opportunity and to have that flexible, attitude of sort of meeting everybody right where they are is
exactly.
a really, really beautiful gift. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful gift.
Yeah.
And witness to that.
Yes. And I have my daughter is a senior in college, but I have two nephews who are seniors in high school. And so they're going through the admissions process now, and they're starting to hear back from schools. And I said to them, I'm like, I cannot stress this enough. And I'm not saying this just because I love you and I'm your aunt, but if the answer is no from a college or university, please don't take it personal. Because I've learned from working at NACAC that so much goes into that process. And I didn't know that until I started working here. So
it is an amazing thing. The more I talk to people in admissions, the more I realize that like everybody is trying to work to help that applicant to know what is the right path. And if you know that the school that you're representing is not the right path for the student, it's protection, right? It's I can see why you might be interested in the school, but this isn't the school for you. There's a better school for you out there. You've got wonderful gifts and there's a better place for you.
Yeah.
So, I mentioned earlier that the first time we met was at Mastery Transcript Consortium Symposium. And I'm hoping that you'll help me because I sometimes struggle with a really clear way to define competency-based education. And I wonder if you have a definition that you feel like satisfies the bill on that.
My definition is a holistic view of a student, a holistic picture of a student. And full transparency, I'm on the Mastery Transcript Consortium board of directors, and I was drawn to them because my daughter did not go to a a school that offered the mastery learning, et cetera. But she did go to a school that was very supportive. And I will say that what sold me on the school that she ended up going to, the secondary school, was when we went for like an information session. I remember the head of school saying, this is the place for your student to come and learn how to self-advocate. And I thought, yes, like that, because you need to know how to self-advocate in life. Like, right. So when you go to college, or even, as a teenager, if you go and you get your first job, when you graduate from college, you need to know how to advocate for yourself, to speak up. And I just thought, this is really a great environment. This is going to be a great, and it ended up being that. But going back to your original question, yes, it's a holistic picture of a student. It is not just, that they got it, they have A's and B's and C's and all of that. It is, are they collaborative? Right? It's the collaboration piece. Are they a strategic thinker? How do they learn to become a strategic thinker? Can they ask questions? How do they learn to form a question, to absorb information and then articulate their questions or responses? There's just so much more to students than just grades. And I saw that with my daughter. Like, she's not a bad student, but she wasn't a straight A student in school either. But where she excelled was that she was a leader, who not only advocated for herself, but she advocated for other people. And the school recognized that, and they saw that. And where she's in college now, and they see that and they recognize that. I remember when we went to, again, an information session at the school at the college that she's at now. And they were doing a slide presentation on just the requirements to get into the college. And she didn't have maybe the ACT scores and things like that they were looking for. And I remember when we left there, I said to my husband, I'm like, where did she go? And I looked, and she had made a beeline over to one of the admissions folks. And she was having a conversation. And so when she came back over to us, I'm like, what were you saying? What is happening? And she said, I was just saying to them, I may not have this or that, but I can tell you what I do have. I mean, she was already advocating for herself. And I'm not saying that is why she ended up getting accepted, but just the fact that she learned that from in high school. Like, that's where she learned that. She also, and I know she probably will not mind me saying this, because she talks about it even when she talks to students in college. She's very open about the fact that in high school, that's when she realized she had anxiety. And so while I was like applying all this pressure, I'm just like, well, why do you have a B in Spanish when you're such a great speaker? Like, why isn't this an A? I mean, I personally was I know this, I was putting so much pressure on her. And when I look back, and especially after now working at NACAC, I'm like, okay, oh my God, what was I thinking? But I remember her saying to me, like, I have anxiety. Like, she had self-diagnosed. She's like, I have anxiety. So, and she said, when I get in these environments to sit and take a test, I could know something like the back of my hand, but when I get in that environment, I panic. And so I'm like, oh my God. And we talked to her counselor there, and they provided the support that she needed, etc. But I say all that to say, they still saw something. They saw the other things in her that would make for an amazing student at a school, at a college or university. And I'm a big proponent of the need for this holistic view of a student. I really am. Yeah.
Well, it's funny, you didn't describe, you said that it wasn't really a competency-based school, but in the end, it really was.
Yeah, that's
Right?
true.
Because
Yeah.
they were doing what I hope really good competency-based education does, which is look at the strength of the student and have and find out where the competencies are
Yeah.
through the avenue of the student's talents,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, I don't know that this is how it went, but I can imagine a scenario where maybe she didn't do so well on a test, but maybe she sat with the teacher and said, listen, I know this stuff and I can
Yeah.
tell you all about this,
Yes.
this incredibly important part of it and
Yes.
this part of it. And these, they go together and they're important because,
Yes.
and that's the kind of synthesis that as educators, I think we're always looking for, but we have such a hard time finding on a multiple choice test or
That is exactly what you're describing. That's exactly what happened on multiple occasions where
right.
she would, or even her professor may have come to her teacher, may have come to her and say, like, Indy, this doesn't reflect, what I know, And she's like, no, it doesn't. I clammed up because that's what I do in tests. And then they sat and had conversation about what was on the exam, and she could verbalize
Yes.
the answers and express herself even more than what she could do. And the other thing about, like, when we think about I don't know, these tests, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with tests, but in real life, right, when you or I need to come up with a solution, we need to come up with answers, we don't have 60 minutes. It's not timed. Okay, start now. And then at the end of this hour, we're
And
done.
it's not siloed either. We're not just doing the mathematics part of our lives,
Yes,
from
exactly.
9:30 to 10:30, right?
Yes.
We're having to put all of the parts of the world together for ourselves in that answer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting too, because, employers will say, and we know this, and even colleges and universities, they want uh, they want diversity on their campus.
Right.
And that includes diversity in thought and the way we approach problems and things like that. And employers, I mean, we read enough job descriptions to know, and we created our own. It's just so far removed from what your typical secondary school career, what that looks like. And then when you get out, you are expected to be able to think critically, right? And but you may not have learned that in school, or approach things in that way, I should say.
Right. And I think also, like, we also haven't in the past credited the things that happen outside of school, where students are building incredible skills and strategies to deal with the world,
Yeah.
and I think it's done a real disservice to kids, because it's made a student who's had, maybe have to be home taking care of siblings in the afternoon and not be able to be the head of the lacrosse team, right?
Yeah.
Because they can't do that. They have other responsibilities. But talk about leadership,
Yes.
right? That's incredible.
Yeah.
And we have to find ways to make sure that that's equitable, right?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm just curious, and I'm giving you a chance to sort of, give a shout out to some of the really great competency-based education you've seen around. And I think you've really described some beautifully at your daughter's school. But have you seen in your role at MTC or at NACAC just some really great examples of competency-based education where they're really doing the thing and what the impact is?
No, just from the standpoint of the schools that are part of the MTC community, I would say. But I don't get involved in the schools that and a lot of what the schools are doing. Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
It seems like it's important though, because I think we don't want to miss the students like your
Yeah.
daughter
No,
and so many,
yeah.
and it's really, and it's not just anxiety. There are a lot of things that, prevent people from scoring well on a test.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely.
Uh,
I love when students are able to um just be in environments where safe environments where the pressure is not there. Um, and it's more of they're having they're learning through collaboration and talking, just talking. And there's again, the diversity of thought and how to look at things. Um, and because you think differently than somebody else, it's not necessarily wrong because that is the real world, right? Um, we learn to accept that people think differently than we do. So,
yeah, and I think sometimes we lose track of that. We've lost track of that a little bit in the world.
yeah,
And so I think we need to help our children have that again.
yes,
know?
exactly.
I mean, my grandfather used to say, we have the same goal, but we have different ways of getting to it.
Yeah, yeah,
We have the same goal. We want everybody to be successful and happy, but we have different ways of getting to it. So, so I'm just curious. I mean, college admissions have changed a lot in the last 5 years. SAT optional. We hear more and more schools sort of moving away from the AP model. I just wonder, I'm going to ask for a prediction. What do you think college admissions will look like 5 years from now?
it's hard to say because there are so many different influences. Um, I'm thinking of politics,
Sure.
right? And how much politics has and will continue to influence the admissions landscape. Um, I know at our conference recently, we announced the NACAC Center for Reimagining College Access. And so with that new center, it's like a future focused, research, practice, and technology. And basically our goal is to support our members in thinking about this new landscape of college admission. So with that, areas of focus, they're going to be like workforce development for our members, how we connect students to colleges. We're going to take a look at that. The admissions process in general. And then I believe the last piece is like a scholar practitioner model, like for greater impact. And I just think like we're really excited about it because there are a lot of members who have raised their hand and said, hey, whatever when you guys are ready, please count me in. Like I want to volunteer in any way that, that you need to help shape what the landscape looks like in the future. But it's hard to predict for sure, because again, there's just so many different factors. And the political landscape is definitely a big one. So.
All right. Well, I guess I asked a tough one there because that's it is hard to predict.
Yeah.
Even for you with because you've got your finger on the pulse. And
yeah.
if you can't imagine, then I think we have to just wait and see and keep trying to do the right thing.
I mean, I'll tell you what I'd love to see. I'm not telling you that this is what would happen. I'd love it. Well, it is that our vision will come true, and that is that this transformative power of a post-secondary education is accessible to everyone. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's our goal. That's our vision, is that at some point we will get there where everyone will have access. And right now they don't,
Do you think that the competency-based transcript can be a player in that? Do you think that can help?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we'd love to, I've spoken to Mike Flanagan at MTC about the Center for Reimagining College Access. And I know he's been involved heavily with NACAC on a few other initiatives around reimagining college access. So I just think the competency, to answer your question, yes, absolutely. I think anything that we can do to support holistic view of a student, holistic admissions is going to help provide everyone with access, right? Because right now, if this model that we're currently working with around letter grades and scores, I should say, that's not doing it.
No.
It's not, right? And so, yeah, if you can get, and if you think about it, since the Supreme Court decision, right? Schools are having to become more creative about their admissions process so they can learn more about the students who are applying to schools, right? So, but again, that plays a role in that holistic picture of a student, right? What's your story?
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, when I think about the mastery transcript, what's developed there, the way it reveals who the student is so humane.
Yeah.
First of all, I think the student is engaged in creating the transcript themselves, right? It's not just the report from, how you did in Algebra 2. Did you get an 84? Did you get a 96? How did you do in Humanities 2? It's not just that, right? It's this, it's the evidence, right?
Yes.
It's why you're competent.
Mm-hmm.
Why it's what you did and how you shared the evidence. So just like your daughter sitting down with a teacher and saying, I know this because, and I can talk to you about it all day long because I'm passionate about it. I care about it. You've given me a lot of great information. You've given me things to think about. You've forced me to, reflect on what I think.
Yeah.
And not just receive information from somebody else. You've forced me to be a conscious recipient of information. You've taught me how to think about things and given me many opportunities.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm competent in this area.
Yeah.
And I think, when I describe it to parents here at Slate School, I sometimes talk about the fact that, we all have different talents and we want to maintain those. We want our students to discover who they are in this process.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that you were talking about self-advocacy. And I think it's that opportunity to actually know who you are. So really what's worth advocating for.
Yes.
I think it's so important. And then you can find a way to competency through your strength. So your daughter's strength was leadership, and she was able to demonstrate the things that she was good at through that lens of leadership. And I think that is going to have a big impact. And I hope that, I hope that we discover that it's not such a stretch, right? That schools like your daughters are doing this. They just don't know they're doing it.
Exactly. No, absolutely. I also think too that the competency-based model, it helps students feel seen. So they discover things about themselves, as we do as adults when we're updating our resume or when we're interviewing and we have to talk about ourselves, right? Because you forget, what have I done? But with students, it's like, wow, I am special. I do excel maybe not over there, but certainly over here. And I'm gravitating to what I enjoy doing. And the teachers see that. I feel I'm seen. People like, right?
Yes.
And I just feel like that is also so very important. I mean, my job is to help our members feel seen and heard, right? And we're talking about adults. So I think if you can do that with students, and really hone in on like what they're good at and all of that, and they're not being judged by a test score, I just think it makes a world of difference as far as I'm concerned, and how they view themselves. And that to me, that's more important than anything else, is how they view themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think that when we're focused on those tests, we're focused on a teacher imposed ceiling,
Yeah.
right? When we say, this is what we want you to know. And then of course, kids inevitably say back, do I need to know this? Do I need to know this? Right. Most dreaded words in all of education. Well, I need to know this.
Yeah.
But when we say that this is for the test, then we sort of suggest that this is all you need to know.
Yeah.
And in a more holistic model, when you're talking about competency, I think students in that opportunity, in that moment of being seen, also recognize that knowledge doesn't have a ceiling.
Right. Right. And they probably carry it with them even longer than when they might when they're cramming for a test potentially. I believe. And I think that those are probably moments that they don't forget as easily. Yeah.
I think you're right. And I think that there, if you think for a minute that that it's not, I want to say this in the right way, it's still an opportunity to show what you know.
Yes.
So it's not as though we're just smoothing the path for people.
Yeah.
It's still an opportunity to show up and really say, I can demonstrate competency in this area.
Yeah.
So we're not smoothing the path. We're not making it easier. In fact, in some ways, we're asking students to work at the very front of their brains. We're asking them to work at the limit of their capacity.
Yeah.
And we're allowing them to determine what that is. We're not saying that this is as far as we need you to go. This is an A, right?
Which then really prepares them very well for college, because college is not for everyone. But if they choose to go to the military, if they choose, a trade or something like that, but it definitely prepares you for that. Yeah.
They're going to vote. Like I want students who are going to vote to have that kind of education.
Yes.
Because they're not just accepting what's being given to them. They're just like a big part of what they're doing is discerning for themselves and about the information. I think it's so important.
It's interesting. Oh,
yeah,
go ahead.
No, you go.
No, I was just going to say, it's interesting you mentioned that, that they're going to vote. It's, one of the things that we piloted at one of our fairs, one of our college fairs this fall, was a nonpartisan student voter registration drive. Give students the opportunity to start their civic life, right? And to learn about the voting process and all of that. So it went really well, and we're going to probably, continue in several cities this spring. But I was floored by the response from the parents and the students. Like, thank you for doing this. Because this is very, very important, for our students, and counselors were happy about that as well. So I feel like it all ties together.
Everything's connected.
Yeah.
Everything is connected.
Yeah.
It's all connected. I hope kids, leave school recognizing that too.
Yeah.
That it is connected.
Yes.
Everything is relevant.
Yeah.
It really is. It really is. So I'm going to ask you to put on your marketing hat for a minute.
Okay.
Think about, so because I do think that we agree, and I think, I hope that we've, for anybody who didn't know about competency-based education, I hope that we've given them enough information that they want to look into it more, they want to understand it better, they want to keep learning about it, and that they hear how positive we think it is, with how important we think it could be in so many different areas.
Yeah.
Um, so I hope they've seen that, but how can we, what do we need to do? What do we need to do to make competency-based, like an authentic learning, just more universal?
I think communicate the value, right? Communicate the value of competency-based learning. Um, but it probably is going to be most effective if folks are hearing from the students, right? So hearing from the students, hearing from the parents, and if you're able to follow a student, and this will take some time, but if you're able to follow a student from the time they started in that environment to maybe where they are, whether they're in college, they graduated college and they're employed, right? Um, and just following that journey, to me, that is probably the best marketing you could do. Because they're hearing from, they're actually hearing
Yes.
from someone who went through the process. I think that would be very impactful, you know?
Yeah, you've made me think that we should do some student education idea labs,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
we could let the learners talk about it, and we could look around, and I bet we could find learners at all different ages from all different places.
Yeah.
We could,
Oh,
and we
absolutely. And I would also do that with among, maybe you get a group of parents,
yes,
you get a group of parents, because I'm sure there's probably parents, I mean, they're the ones that are ultimately going to say yes and or no, and you want folks to hear from them. What was that journey like? And to be honest about the what challenges and some obstacles, but wow, look at where we are, look at where we are today. Um, and also the teachers. I think idea labs with teachers,
mm,
um, who can talk about their experience, because I think I'd say one of the biggest roadblocks you probably have within a school is how does this impact our administration, right? How does this, especially if it's new, like how does this impact um, the teachers that will have to kind of shift a bit in their approach.
right.
Um, so yeah, I think to me that is the best form of marketing that you could do because it's not gimmicky. It is authentic. You are hearing from people who have actually, uh, experienced competency-based learning and how it benefited them.
That's great. That's a great idea. Yeah, I can imagine. I can see the whole thing happening
Yeah.
right in my mind.
Yes.
And it's been great too, because I think that families and students have both been empowered to really be confident in this kind of education, because they keep hearing over and over again that, universities and colleges all over the country are able to read a mastery transcript
Yeah.
and see the real value of the student.
Yeah.
And
I
I think before, in advance of that, it was scary. It
yeah.
was really scary.
And I think, just realizing too that you'll have folks who have no idea what this is, and their biggest fear, I would say it would be my biggest fear if I had a student, who is in school, is will this make it harder for them to get into college? Do colleges know about this? Do colleges understand this? I mean, I think those would be the questions that I would have as a parent. Um, because obviously as a parent, you're not going to do anything that makes it harder for your kid to go to the school of their choice. And so I think conveying that this is becoming more and more popular. We are realizing the benefits of it. And here are some of the schools who are very familiar with like a mastery transcript and
Right.
you know, so yeah.
And there's so many of them, right?
Yeah.
You know, the list is pretty long. I mean, we're so fortunate. We live in a place where there are many, many, many wonderful schools.
Yeah.
You
No,
know, it's crazy, isn't it? And there is a school for you, right?
that's the again, I did not realize just how many schools there were before I started researching NACAC and the membership and so forth. And again, I say this to my nephews and anybody in high school who's willing to listen to me, which I echo just what you said, which is there is a school for you. And if you do not get into a school or the school of your choice, it's their loss. You are going to be fine, and you're going to be fine because of who you are. Because of you, the school doesn't necessarily make you. You are who you are, and you're going to be great. And it's also too, I say to them, it's do you take advantage of the opportunities in front of you at the school, at the college and the university, right?
Yes.
Because that makes a world of difference. You could get into that school that you want to get into, but if you don't take advantage of the opportunities, then you may not have such a great experience. So yeah.
It's true. And I think, I don't know, maybe this is naive, but I felt like for my daughters, the school that they ended up going to, they weren't just seeking that school was seeking them.
Okay.
And I think they felt it when they got
Yeah.
there. I don't know. I mean, I can't really say what the feels are.
Yes.
You know, a
I know
student
what you
on
mean.
campus and say immediately, no, I don't like this school. This school isn't for me. And you've driven 6 hours to get there. But then somehow they arrive on the campus of a school that is actually just right. And you can feel it. And I don't know what the feels are, but I think possibly it's that the school is really, there's a palpable feeling that the school is seeking them.
That is so true. When we were doing college tours, um, it was just that. I didn't say a word.
I can't say that I was that
If,
good.
if there are any parents watching, I did not say a word. I was like, you know what? I'm going to just keep my thoughts to myself and just hear my daughter out. And I remember when we stepped foot on this campus and just the level of engagement, the eye contact that folks, made with her in admissions, and just everyone who was, all the adults, they saw her.
Yes.
And I remember getting in the car, and she looked at me and she said, I want to go here. And I said, why? And there were two reasons. I feel like they see me, mommy, and I can be myself. I can be my authentic self. I don't know how you argue with that, right? And I said, I knew it though. I didn't say anything, but I was like, she's gonna want to go here because they see her and they see all of the other students who are here today. And she felt it. She felt that. And the ironic part is we went to another school, and I'm not going to say any school names, but a very highly, selective school. And it was the worst experience in terms of just feeling like you are a number. Everybody wants to go here. Here's the information. Let's do a walking tour of like 30 people. I mean, you didn't feel special or anything like that. And I remember her getting in the car and she's like, I don't want to go here anymore. I said, okay. She said, you're
No is
just,
a good answer, right? No is a good answer. I know
yeah,
it can come from
yeah,
either side,
yeah.
right? Rejection can come from either way.
She said I would just be a number and I don't want to be, I don't want to be a number. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Again, I didn't say anything. I felt the same way. I just thought, oh my God, I personally, as a parent who would be paying tuition, I felt like, wow, this is not what I expected from this school. But anyway, she ended up where she should have been and it's worked out. So yeah, it's worked out.
I think isn't that often the way it goes too, right? You know,
Yes,
you get to your school and you fall in love with your school. And I
yes,
think, you know, I have recently in the last, I don't know how long, few years, just had the opportunity to talk to a lot of admissions people. And it's I'm a little ashamed of myself because I don't think I realized how mission driven people and people in admissions really are. And it strikes me as, you know, while we're trying to get the word out about competency-based education, we should also be doing a little ad campaign for the admissions people because they work incredibly hard. They have long hours. It's not like, you know, it's not like sweeping the walkway. It's done when it's done. It's never done. There's always more that they could do. There are probably kids that they worry about that
yeah,
they've never even met. And I just, you know, I wonder how is the retention in that field? Because it must be very, very hard to
yeah.
sustain that.
No, absolutely. I think the admissions folks and also, the counselors are, I just, oh my gosh, I commend them because I remember a couple of years ago, I was the staff liaison or one of the staff liaisons for our public school counselor ad hoc committee. Um, and I remember the first meeting. I don't remember maybe all the others, but I remember that first meeting because I posed the question, like, well, first I said, talk to me about like, let's get some of your challenges down on paper. Like, let's talk about that. So they walk through all these challenges. And I'm like, good Lord, like, my goodness. Um, and I then I posed the question, I said, why do you do this job? And the answers I got, I found myself reaching for like a box of tissues because that's how, it was not about them at all. It was about the students and the first gen students and how it is, I do this job because of the joy it brings a student, a family, when the student gets accepted to college. It's the stories that I was hearing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like bless you. And I will say in that moment, I thought about my high school counselor because she wasn't a college advisor. She was everything, right? She was everything. She had lunch duty and she was dealing with problems and issues that we all were having. And she was also trying to advise us with college. And it was one person.
Yes.
And I just had this newfound respect for her because I don't think, of course, as a student, I didn't realize just what her job entailed and all of that. So I listen to, like, I have a special place in my heart for our like our public school counselor members, especially because obviously they're under resourced, they're underpaid, they're, all of that, some of them. But they do it because they care.
Yes.
And I think I know the same is the case for like the admissions folks as well. But um the roles are rooted in stories, right? The roles are rooted in stories, and the stories that I have heard in the nearly 3 years that I've been at NACAC there's been quite a few tear jerkers. And it makes me want to work that much harder in my role to support them and to listen to them and connect them and provide whatever I can to make their lives easier so that they can support the students. So, yeah. The
So,
students are at the center of everything we do.
yeah, right. Right. And they might not know it in those moments.
Yes.
Right. They're stressed and they're worried and they feel maybe a little bit alone, like they're the only ones going through this, but so many people are going through it. And so many people are there sort of standing shoulder to shoulder with them to
Yeah,
help. And, as parents, we're trying our best to do that too.
of
But
course.
sometimes it's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard. It's hard to be a parent.
Yes.
But, I guess I wonder what advice could we give to parents about, navigating this time for their child? I think you've spoken anecdotally about a lot of really beautiful things that could be helpful, but what could we say to them about maybe helping their child find out who they are?
Yeah. I think I think listening to them, and listening with the intent to understand versus like listening with the intent to respond, as we a lot of times we do. Um, this generation, this of students, they are so self-aware. They are a lot more self-aware than I know I was at that age. Um, and I think they know. They know what they like. They know what they don't like. And I think instead of maybe pushing them this way or pushing them that, guiding them, I'll use the word guiding them this way or guiding them that way. I think we should take it seriously and support what they want to do, because ultimately they will be happier individuals, and probably contribute greater to our society, which is what we all want, right? Um, I think that's a big thing. I I look back to my daughter and I thought I knew. Again, there's so much I didn't know until I got here, but I'm like, you have to have these scores and you have to have this and you have to, yeah, I know, I hear what you said, but you got to do this, you got to do that. And I remember talking to her college advisor. It's like, Mom, she's going to be fine. She's going to be fine because of all these other things.
Yes.
There's all these other things that she's doing so well. Let's not focus on just that. Like, just because of all. Um, I think just remembering that this college admission experience, it is theirs. It's not ours. It's not ours. And I think oftentimes we get, you know, if you read and you're watching the news, and everything is about the highly selective schools, there's thousands upon thousands of schools, and there is a place for your student. There is a place for your student. And I think sitting down with them and listening. Now, on the flip side, I think they need to listen to you when it comes to the finances, especially, right? Because that's real. That's real also.
Yes.
Um, I would say starting that conversation early, and not junior year.
Or
It could,
junior year.
right. I mean, it could
Or
even,
junior year.
yes. I mean, start the conversation in when they're in the ninth grade, eighth grade, or ninth grade. Take them to a college fair. Take them to a college fair,
That's a great idea.
right? I mean, take them to a college fair. Why do they have to wait until they are a junior and where they have to make a choice and all of this kind of stuff? It's like, start that process earlier. Um, and to colleges, my advice would be, and actually to adults, let's stop asking our kids, what do you want to major in? And instead say, what do you like to do? What do you like to do? Instead of what do you want to major in? Because a lot of them, they don't know, or they think they know.
Or they've been told by somebody that they're really good at something, and so you're going to be an engineer, or, you're such a good writer, you're going to be an author. I mean, and those are the kinds of comments that come from well-intentioned,
Of course,
well-meaning people,
absolutely,
right? We're identifying a talent. Isn't that so great?
absolutely.
But I think it might not be the thing that they're most talented in, that
Yeah,
they love to do, right? They might, and they will become much better at that
yes, yes,
because
yes,
because work will be play,
yeah.
right?
What do you love to do? And actually also, what do you not like? What do you not enjoy doing? Because I think
Let's
that's
know about.
important too.
You're right. That's right. Let's know about that too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Oh, Chantel, it's after 6:30. I can't
Oh,
believe I'm so happy to have had this conversation and so grateful to you.
oh,
At the beginning of the conversation you were talking, I just wrote down some of the words: listening, seeing, sharing, inspire, empower, reimagining college. I just like, I'm so happy that you're around.
oh, thank you.
Because I think we're so fortunate to have you to chat with us tonight
Thank
and
you.
to share your experiences and to be in your position and do so much good, because
Yeah,
I believe you're doing so much good.
thank you. Well, folks like you and our members at NACAC and our staff, I mean, they get me energized, and they make me love my job, because of the work that I know they put in to support the students and families. And I feel like we will get there one day, right? Everyone will one day have access to a post-secondary education. We will get there. But I love my role. Again, for me, it's the students and their faces when they get to those college fairs, and there's so many different emotions, and I live for that, because I'm like, they are our future, right? So let's help prepare them for that. So
Awesome.
yeah,
Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. And thank you again, Chantel. Have a wonderful evening.
thank
Enjoy your
you.
break, and we'll see you in 2024, I hope.
Absolutely. Have a great holiday and a happy new year.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.